The deal with the devil. Emma Carter never imagined herself in a designer wedding gown, standing under the gilded chandeliers of an opulent ballroom, saying vows that meant nothing. But life had a way of twisting the unexpected into reality. Across from her stood Liam Sinclair, childhood best friend, notorious billionaire heir, and the only man desperate enough to ask her for help in the most absurd way possible. Emma Carter. The officiant's voice rang through the hall, echoing against the cathedral ceilings. Do you take Liam Sinclair to be your lawfully wedded husband? Emma's heart pounded as she met Liam's gaze. His expression was unreadable, a perfect mask of charm and confidence. Only she knew the truth behind the facade. This marriage was a sham, a carefully orchestrated illusion meant to secure Liam's inheritance from his ruthless father, a marriage built on lies. She inhaled deeply, forcing a smile as cameras flashed. I do. Liam's fingers tightened around hers. A silent thank you, a plea for trust. I now pronounce you husband and wife. As Liam leaned in, his lips brushing hers, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that she'd just made a deal with the devil. 2 months earlier. Are you out of your mind? Emma stared at Liam, her paint-stained hands frozen midair as she processed his words. He leaned back against her tiny apartment's kitchen counter, arms crossed, looking too comfortable for someone who had just proposed the most ridiculous idea in history. Completely, Liam admitted with a smirk, but desperate times call for desperate measures. Emma tossed a paintbrush onto the counter. Marry you? Liam, that's insane. Technically, it's strategic, he corrected. My father's forcing my hand. If I don't get married by the end of the year, I lose everything. The company, my shares, the penthouse. Oh no, she deadpanned. Not the penthouse. Emma, his voice softened. You're the only person I trust. That stopped her. Liam Sinclair had everything, wealth, charm, an entire city wrapped around his finger. Yet here he was asking her for help. You could have any woman you wanted, she pointed out. Why me? He ran a hand through his hair, exhaling sharply. Because you're the only one who won't betray me. There was something raw in his voice, something unspoken between them. They had been friends since childhood. Emma knew the scars Liam carried from growing up in the Sinclair family. She bit her lip. And what do I get out of this? Liam's smirk returned. $1 million. Emma choked on air. Excuse me? You heard me. He leaned in, eyes glinting. Marry me for 1 year, help me secure my inheritance, and I'll set you up for life. Her artist career had been floundering, her rent overdue, and student loans suffocating her. $1 million could change everything. Emma should have said no, but against her better judgment, she found herself whispering, okay. Chapter 2, A Marriage Built on Lies. The Sinclair estate was a world of its own, an expanse of wealth, power, and carefully guarded secrets. As Emma stepped into the grand mansion, the reality of her situation hit her like a cold wave. Marble floors gleamed under the glow of an extravagant chandelier, and oil paintings of past Sinclair patriarchs loomed from the walls, their piercing gazes following her every step. Liam rested a hand on the small of her back, his touch warm and grounding. Welcome home, Mrs. Sinclair. The words sent a shiver down her spine. She played along, smiling for the waiting staff, but in the back of her mind the truth remained. This was nothing more than an elaborate performance, and they weren't the only ones aware of it. A slow clap echoed from the top of the sweeping staircase. How touching, drawled a deep, smooth voice. Emma looked up to see Nathan Sinclair, Liam's older brother, descending the stairs with the air of a man who had already unraveled their entire charade. Dressed in a crisp black suit, he carried the same sharp Sinclair features as Liam, but where Liam was golden and effortless, Nathan was cold precision, a man who saw weakness and exploited it. You must be Emma, Nathan said, stopping just inches away from her. His sharp gray eyes scanned her like she was a puzzle he was already solving. The wife. The way he said it made her skin prickle. Liam tensed beside her. Not now, Nathan. Nathan ignored him, his gaze never leaving hers. Tell me, Emma, what's your favorite thing about my dear brother? Emma didn't blink. She had prepared for this, expected doubt, skepticism, but she hadn't expected it this soon, or for Nathan to wield it like a blade. She smiled sweetly. His heart. Nathan's lips twitched, just barely. His heart? Yes, she said smoothly. You might not see it, but Liam cares more than he lets on. He'd do anything for the people he loves. Nathan let the silence stretch. Then, with an almost imperceptible smirk, he said, Interesting. It wasn't approval. It was a challenge. Emma swallowed. She had the sinking feeling that Nathan Sinclair would be watching her very closely. Within hours of their arrival, Emma was thrown into a high-profile dinner hosted by William Sinclair himself, the formidable patriarch who controlled every Sinclair like pieces on a chessboard. Seated at the long dining table, she felt the weight of expectation pressing in. Across from her, Liam was at ease, slipping into his role effortlessly. But Emma, every word, every movement felt scrutinized. "You're an artist, I hear," William remarked over dinner, his voice measured. "Yes," Emma replied politely. "I work mostly with oil paintings." "How charming," he said, though his tone suggested the opposite. "Tell me, what do you think of our family?" Nathan, seated a few chairs away, gave her an amused glance as if daring her to answer wrong. Emma held her smile. "They're remarkable." William took a slow sip of his wine. "And what's your understanding of the responsibilities that come with being a Sinclair wife?" She understood them perfectly. It meant obedience, loyalty, silence. Before she could answer, Liam spoke smoothly, cutting through the tension. "She's not here to be a trophy wife, Father. Emma is my partner." His words were meant to protect her, but they only made William's gaze turn colder. Nathan chuckled under his breath. "How touching." Emma clenched her fists beneath the table. The game had begun. Later that night, after surviving her first official Sinclair gathering, Emma stood in the dimly lit bedroom that she now shared with Liam. She pulled out a silk nightgown from her suitcase, feeling the weight of exhaustion settling in. "Well, that was fun," she muttered sarcastically. Liam, who had been silent since dinner, loosened his tie and exhaled. "I'm sorry about my father. And Nathan." Emma studied him. They were expected. What she hadn't expected was him. He had been acting different. Sure, he was always charming and persuasive, but tonight something had felt off. "Liam, earlier, when we first got here, Nathan asked me what I loved about you." Liam looked at her, interested. "And I said your heart." A small smile played on his lips. "Good answer." "Was it?" She folded her arms. "Because for a moment, I wasn't sure you actually remembered this was all fake." Liam blinked. The silence stretched, a flicker of something unreadable crossing his face. "Of course I remember," he said lightly, but his voice carried an edge. "Why wouldn't I?" Emma hesitated. "Because at the dinner table, the way you spoke about me, it felt real." Liam stepped closer. Emma, her breath hitched. He was too close, his cologne wrapping around her, his presence overwhelming. Then, just as quickly, he laughed, breaking the tension. "Relax, Em, you're overthinking things." Maybe she was. But a part of her whispered that something wasn't right. Liam leaned against the doorway, watching her. "We just have to get through this year, and then you'll never have to deal with my family again." Emma forced a smile. "Right. Just 1 year." But as she lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, she couldn't shake the feeling that Liam's words weren't true. Because for a moment, just a fleeting second, when she had questioned if he remembered the marriage was fake, his eyes had looked as if he had already forgotten. Chapter 3: Cracks in the Facade. Emma was starting to forget what was real and what was pretend. The days blurred together in a carefully curated performance. Liam's arm around her waist at public events, stolen glances at high society gatherings, whispered affections when they weren't alone. But when they were alone, something was changing. Liam wasn't playing his role anymore. Or worse, maybe he had forgotten it was just an act. It started with the little things. Emma woke one morning to find a steaming cup of coffee on her nightstand. Not unusual, except she had never told Liam how she took her coffee. 2 sugars, no cream. Then there were the absent-minded touches, his fingers brushing hers when they walked, the way his hand would settle on the small of her back long after the cameras had disappeared. She told herself it was habit, but when she caught him staring at her across the breakfast table, a soft, almost adoring look in his eyes, her stomach twisted with something dangerously close to guilt. "This is fake," she reminded herself, gripping her coffee cup tighter. "Just an act. So why did he look at her like it wasn't?" Emma nearly jumped as Nathan's voice broke through her thoughts. She turned to find him leaning casually against the bookshelf in the Sinclair library, watching her with the same unnerving scrutiny he always had. "Do you make a habit of sneaking up on people?" she asked, setting her book down. Nathan smirked. "Only when they're being naive." Emma crossed her arms. "What is that supposed to mean?" Nathan stepped closer, his expression unreadable. It means my brother is playing a dangerous game, and if you're not careful, you're going to get burned. A chill crawled down her spine. Liam and I have an arrangement. That's all. Nathan tilted his head. Are you sure about that? His words sent a ripple of doubt through her. Before she could respond, he added, if I were you, I'd ask myself one simple question. Does Liam still remember this is fake? Her breath caught. Nathan gave her one last knowing look before walking away, leaving her standing in the library with her heart pounding, because the truth was, she wasn't sure anymore. That night, Emma found an envelope slipped under her bedroom door. Her pulse quickened as she unfolded the single sheet of paper. Leave before it's too late. The warning was unsigned, but the message was clear. Emma's hands shook as she stared at the words. Someone in this house knew the truth, and worse, someone wanted her gone. She found Liam in his office, sleeves rolled up, tie loosened, deep in thought. For a moment, she hesitated. Then, determined to get answers, she stepped inside. Liam? He looked up, and for a second, the tension in his face softened. Hey, Em. She held up the note. Did you write this? His brows furrowed as he took it from her. No. Where did you get this? Someone slid it under my door. Liam's jaw tightened. I'll handle it. She crossed her arms. That's not an answer. He exhaled, raking a hand through his hair. Emma, I told you, being part of this family comes with risks. People will try to scare you, test you. She studied him, searching for any sign of deception. Are you trying to scare me? Liam stilled. Then, with deliberate slowness, he set the note down and stepped closer, his gaze dark and unreadable. You think I'd ever let anything happen to you? Her breath hitched as he reached for her hand, his touch slow, deliberate. You're my wife, he murmured. Fake or not, I won't let anyone hurt you. The way he said it made her stomach flip, because for the first time she wasn't sure if he was protecting her from his family or from himself. And as his fingers lingered on hers, Emma realized something terrifying. If Liam had forgotten this was fake, then maybe, deep down, so had she. Chapter 4, The Family's Dark Secret. Emma had made a mistake. She thought she could play this game, pretend to be the perfect Sinclair wife, and walk away unscathed. But something was wrong. Deeply wrong. Liam was changing. He wasn't just playing the devoted husband anymore. He was becoming him, and worse. Emma was starting to wonder if this house, this family, was hiding something far more dangerous than just a fake marriage. It started with the whispers. Emma had woken in the middle of the night, the house too quiet, the shadows too thick. She padded barefoot down the hall, pausing when she heard hushed voices coming from William Sinclair's study. He doesn't need to know. Her heart thumped, a low, authoritative voice, William. Another voice, sharp and hushed, Nathan. You can't keep lying to him, he's getting worse. Emma pressed herself closer to the door, straining to hear. This is what's best for him, William said coldly. For all of us. Then, footsteps. Coming closer. Emma darted back into the darkness just as the door swung open, Nathan stepping out first, his face set in stone. He paused, eyes flicking toward the hallway. For a second, she thought he saw her, but then he turned and disappeared down the corridor. Emma barely had time to catch her breath before she noticed something. The study door was still open. She hesitated. Then, heart-pounding, she slipped inside. William's study was immaculate, every book and document placed with obsessive precision. But one thing stood out, a small cabinet near his desk, its door slightly ajar. Emma swallowed hard, then reached inside. Her fingers brushed against old medical records. Liam Sinclair. She pulled them out, flipping through the pages, dates, prescriptions, doctor's notes, and then she saw it, a diagnosis. Her stomach twisted. Memory manipulation. Her hands trembled as she read the notes. Liam had been given medications over the years, subtle, controlled dosages designed to stabilize emotional responses and influence cognitive recall. It wasn't just about control. Liam's memories were being tampered with. A cold wave of realization crashed over her. He wasn't forgetting their fake marriage by accident. He was being made to forget it. A sharp sound broke her trance. Footsteps. Someone was coming. Emma shoved the files back into the cabinet and darted toward the opposite door, the hidden servant's passage. Just as she slipped into the darkness, she heard William's voice. You underestimate her. Nathan's reply was quieter, but chilling. She won't leave, Father. A pause. Not now. Emma spent the next day pretending everything was fine, but inside, she was unraveling. She needed answers. That night, she found Liam on the balcony, his gaze lost in the city lights. She hesitated before stepping beside him. Liam. He turned to her, and for a moment she saw it again, that flicker of something off behind his usually sharp eyes. She swallowed. Do you ever feel like you're forgetting things? Liam frowned. What, like, moments disappear, or memories shift? A muscle ticked in his jaw. Why are you asking me that? Emma inhaled deeply. Because I think your father has been controlling more than just your inheritance. Silence. Then, very softly, you went through his study. Her heart stopped. Liam didn't look at her. I knew you would. Emma's breath came unsteady. Liam, I don't want to know, he cut her off, his voice strained. I don't want to know what's real and what isn't. Emma grabbed his hand. Liam, listen to me. He's making you forget things. He's manipulating your mind, your memories. His hand tightened around hers, and then his voice barely above a whisper. I don't care. Emma's chest squeezed painfully. You don't care that he's been controlling you? Liam finally looked at her then, his eyes filled with something dark, something desperate. I don't care, he murmured, because the one thing I do remember is that I love you. Emma froze. He reached up, his fingers brushing her cheek. Fake or not, I don't want to lose you. Tears burned in her eyes. Oh, Liam, this wasn't just about love anymore. This was about saving him. And if he truly couldn't remember what was real and what was an illusion, then she would fight to make sure he never forgot her. Emma had never feared the truth before, but as she lay awake that night, replaying Liam's words over and over, I don't care, because the one thing I do remember is that I love you, she felt something close to terror, because she couldn't tell what was real anymore. And worse, she wasn't sure she wanted to. The next morning, Emma woke to the scent of coffee. She groggily sat up, blinking, as Liam set a cup on her nightstand, his hair tousled from sleep, his shirt slightly unbuttoned as if he'd just thrown it on. You're up early, she murmured. His lips curved into that familiar, easy smirk. Couldn't sleep. Thought I'd check on my wife. Her stomach flipped. She had spent months keeping her guard up, reminding herself this was all temporary. But something was shifting. Liam had stopped treating her like a business arrangement, and instead, he was acting like a man in love, like a husband who wanted her. Emma hesitated, watching him. Liam, he sat at the edge of the bed, his hand brushing against her knee through the sheets. Yeah? She searched his face, needing to know what he truly felt beneath the layers of manipulation and control his family had inflicted on him. Do you still remember that this isn't real? She asked softly. Something flickered in his expression. His thumb traced slow circles on her knee. Tell me, Emma. His voice was low, husky. If it doesn't feel fake anymore, does it matter? Her breath hitched. She was about to answer when, bang! The bedroom door swung open. Nathan stood in the doorway, arms crossed, expression unreadable. Interrupting something? Emma jerked back instinctively, but Liam didn't move. If anything, his jaw tightened in irritation. What do you want, Nathan? Nathan's sharp gaze flicked between them before he smirked. Father wants a word with your wife. Emma's stomach clenched. Liam's grip on her knee tightened. Why? Nathan shrugged. Maybe he's figured out she's not quite as clueless as he hoped. Emma swallowed hard. Liam stood, his entire body coiled with tension. She's not going anywhere. Nathan arched a brow. Are you sure you want to make this real war, little brother? A long, dangerous silence stretched between them. Then Liam exhaled sharply, turning to Emma. I'll go with you. But Nathan was already shaking his head. No, Father wants her, alone. A chill ran down Emma's spine, but before she could protest, Liam pulled her to him, his fingers cupping the back of her neck as he leaned down. His lips brushed against her temple. His voice was barely above a whisper, only for her. You don't have to be afraid, not as long as I'm here. The words sent warmth curling through her chest. But as she walked past Nathan, forcing herself to appear calm, she realized something. She was afraid, because she wasn't sure if Liam was protecting her anymore, or if she was the one who needed to protect him. Emma was led to the grand study, where William Sinclair sat behind his massive mahogany desk, swirling whiskey in a crystal glass. He barely looked up as she entered. Close the door. Emma did, the click echoing ominously. A tense silence filled the room before William finally spoke. You're a smart girl, Emma. His tone was almost conversational, but there was an undeniable steel beneath it. Smarter than I gave you credit for. Emma forced herself to stay still. I don't know what you mean, William smirked. Don't insult me. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on the desk. I know you've been snooping. Her pulse spiked. He swirled his drink slowly, watching her. You've seen the records. You've read the reports. His voice dropped. You know what we've done to Liam. Emma's breath caught. William tilted his head. Tell me, Emma, what exactly do you plan to do with that information? She met his gaze, steady despite the storm inside her. You've been drugging your own son, manipulating his mind, destroying his memories. William didn't flinch, and yet he still chooses me. Emma's fingers clenched into fists. No, he doesn't. You've made sure he can't choose. A slow smile spread across William's face. You think you've changed him? That your presence means anything? He leaned back. What happens when I take you out of the equation? Emma froze. William chuckled. Ah, there it is. Liam will never forgive you, she said, voice shaking with quiet fury. If you hurt me, he'll know the truth. William's expression darkened. He'll believe whatever I tell him to believe. A cold, terrifying realization sank into her bones. William wasn't just controlling Liam's memories. He was ready to erase her from them entirely. Emma took a slow breath. Why are you telling me this? William's smirk returned. Because I'm offering you a choice, dear girl. He set his glass down, folding his hands. You can leave. Disappear. Walk away from this family before I decide you're too much of a liability. He paused. Or you can stay and watch as I turn Liam into exactly what I need him to be. A Sinclair through and through. Emma's heart pounded. And what if he fights back? William's smile didn't waver. He won't remember how. When Emma returned to their bedroom, Liam was waiting. The moment he saw her, his hands were on her arms, his voice laced with concern. What did he say? Emma looked up at him, the man she had agreed to marry for a lie, the man she wasn't supposed to fall for. But she had fallen, and now she had a choice. She could walk away, let William win, and leave Liam trapped in his father's control forever. Or she could stay and fight for him, for them. Emma swallowed hard, then slid her arms around Liam's waist, pressing her face against his chest. I'm not going anywhere. Liam exhaled, wrapping her in his arms. Good. His voice was warm, relieved. He didn't know she wasn't just choosing him, she was choosing war.